Hi, my name is Sunny, and we're here with the PDAC Mining Snaps 2016. And again, another special guest, Thibaut Lepouttre of the Caesars Report. We've had him every year. He has a very specific focus on Europe. He does cover the resource sector, primarily the juniors, but he has a very interesting insight on Europe. So, Thibaut, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Excellent. So, the topic today is just to talk about, a cashless Europe. When we look at the state of the European economy, from what we talked about last year, what has changed in general?
Well,
better, is it worse?
Well, the perception seems to be better, but in theory, the truth be told, it's actually getting a little bit worse. You see some improvement in the labor numbers and the unemployment rate.
In the labor numbers, okay.
Exactly, and mainly in the southern countries like Portugal and Spain and Italy.
Yeah.
That's mainly just some sort of bounce from the bottom, right?
Okay.
You also see the unemployment rate going down because a lot of people are still fleeing the country. So a lot of Spanish people and Portuguese people are just immigrating to other countries where there is work.
Within Europe or outside?
Mainly within Europe because of the lack of borders through the Schengen agreement.
Right.
You can move freely within Europe. So you see a lot of Spanish people popping up in Belgium, in Germany, and in Scandinavian countries because they are looking for work, and even the higher qualified people are actually emigrating. So that might actually have it has had an impact on the unemployment rate because it's going down, but it doesn't mean that there are fewer people looking for a job. Mm-hmm. It's still pretty bad down there. Mm-hmm. So has it gone better? We've seen a shift, yeah, but I wouldn't say Europe is out of the woods just yet.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, so recently we just read an announcement by the Novo Banco bondholders where they got a €2 billion bail-in. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a number of these announcements come up, a number of banks going under a lot of trouble. Another thing was Italian banks are just under pressure with debt which amounts to around 133% of GDP. Mm-hmm. Can we expect this going forward? Do you expect more banks? And we've really seen this over the last few years, but the sheer amount is just much larger. I mean, so.
Yep. Well, let's first start with the bail-ins. I do think that we will see more bail-ins because it's getting put in some more, it's a legislative framework right now. So if you're a shareholder of a bank, I think it's now a very realistic end game that if your bank gets into trouble, you will be wiped out. Even the subordinated bondholders will probably be wiped out, which we saw at Novo Banco in Portugal. So the risk of holding bank stocks has definitely increased, also because I have the impression that unlike the American banks, which have really done a great job in shoring up their balance sheets and increasing their capital ratios, the European banks seem to be lagging a bit behind that. If you compare it to the American banks, which haven't paid a dividend, or a minor dividend, minimal dividend in the past 6, 7, 8 years. The European banks started to pay huge dividends again back in 2010, and it really screwed up their capital ratios a little bit. So I do think that the European banking sector is still carrying a higher risk than the average American or even the Canadian banking sector, despite the energy crisis, which is also weighing on the American and Canadian banks.
You're having a lot of oil loan losses, provision for losses. You're going to see that probably the next few quarters, as that has not really affected the big banks in Canada. Anyways, I can only speak for that for now, but we'll see the next few quarters in terms of their earnings. But it's very interesting how they still, in the prior few quarters, they've announced some record earnings for the banks.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll see in the next couple of quarters when those...
That'll probably change because the loans will either have to be refinanced...
Exactly, yes.
And the hedges will roll off as well, so that's going to be a very important thing. So.
Yeah, it'll be actually a very interesting time in the summer, so we'll see how that works out. Okay, so let's move on to interest rates.
All right.
Interest rates have been such a really interesting, funny game this past couple of years.
Right.
With regards to that, there's around 5.5 trillion of bonds that pay investors in negative interest rates. So, do we expect negative interest rates to now be instituted in European countries, do you think? And
I think we're slowly heading towards that turning point. Yes, because the ECB doesn't really have a lot of firepower left. Right now they're buying billions of bonds every month, but it doesn't really help that much. So the ECB has been charging the commercial banks now negative interest rate for quite a while. So it obviously trickles down with some sort of snowball effect to the commercial banks inside the countries, because if there's an excess capacity of savings accounts and savings money, these banks have to park it overnight at the ECB and they're losing money on it. So I can indeed imagine a lot of banks would like to try to at least put interest rates on zero or even below zero for the clients as well. We've seen that, for instance, in Scandinavia. We've seen the same thing in Japan, like you correctly mentioned. But instead of forcing people to consume more, the Japanese have just started to withdraw money. If you just look at the figures that the Wall Street Journal published, I think last month or 2 months ago, was that the amount of volts that got sold to normal people increased by 150% in 2 weeks' time. So people are just starting to hoard cash. And that's probably also why the Scandinavian idea of a cashless society is gaining more and more steam. Because I think it's practically impossible to implement negative interest rates for people like you and me.
And define cashless society, what do you mean by that?
No more cash in your society. Just pay with cards. You swipe credit cards. You tap with your phone or what's not. Just try to ban cash from your society.
Got it.
You can see the advantages of that, but the negative thing is that you have to fully rely on the banking system to be able to do so. And well, as you know, and you just mentioned, the European banking system is still a little bit shaky. We've seen numerous banks that had to be bailed out in just the past 10 years. So question is the European banking system strong enough? And two, if you don't think it is, then how can the government or could they try to make sure that people don't escape and evade the negative interest rates? Because there has been a recent research by ING Bank out of Belgium and the Netherlands. They asked 13,000 other clients, which is quite a decent amount of people, so get a very decent response on that. They asked what they would do if there would be negative interest rates, and I can only speak for the Belgian response, but 80% said that they would withdraw money from the banks. And in excess of half of the respondents said they would withdraw everything and just keep it in cash at home.
Interesting.
But Sonny, think about this. There's $300 billion in savings, in cash on savings accounts. Can you imagine what would happen if only 30%, 35% of that would be withdrawn? That's $100 billion that's being hoarded in cash. That's going to be the end of the banking system. So the negative interest rates, it's on the table, but I don't believe it will happen without any capital restrictions. Because otherwise you will cause a bank run and a bank collapse.
Interesting. It's interesting that they would have a survey for that. They're probably instituting some security protocols to prevent that from even happening. Well, I mean, they probably thought about this years ago.
I think they're planting the seeds to make people get used to accept the idea and then to implement it.
Interesting. So, given all this, I mean, we talked a lot about Europe. I mean, what is your outlook then on the precious metals side? I mean, we've seen, and I've asked some of our guests this as well, we've seen a very good run-up in the gold price of late. Surprisingly. I mean, what do you expect going forward in terms of the precious metals and investment overall?
Well, I don't want to jinx it because there's always the post-PDAC blues where stocks and then gold price usually comes off a little bit. But it looks very good. It looks very interesting, especially with the pressure on the negative interest rates in Europe. There's only so much you can do, and people can't hoard cash in shoe boxes under their bed. So precious metals are gaining more and more traction and more steam in Europe as well. And I would hope that we have seen the bottom in the precious metal space because, well, let's face it, we've been trading at 1080, 1100 gold for the past 6 to 9 months. We've tested the bottom several times. I'm positively surprised by the recent strength and the recent momentum in gold. I don't think we're out of the woods just yet.
What is your take on it then? I mean, you're saying positively surprised. So what do you think is the main reason for this run-up? Is it
insecurity in the markets? Insecurity in the markets because you see over in Europe you see the negative interest rates. You see the same thing in Japan. You see the Federal Reserve hesitating to increase the interest rates even further, which might indicate they are not fully certain that the economy is doing well. So I think that all adds up to some certain level of insecurity, which makes people look for safe havens again.
Well, another thing too.
Number one.
Another thing too is even with the Bank of Canada. I mean, the governor of the Bank of Canada has made it clear that they still don't know if they want to increase interest rates or reduce. They're just keeping it the same. But the language of what you mentioned at the last statement was that negative. They talked about negative interest rates, and that was a tool that they would consider. He didn't say very specific, very clear, but it was disguised. But even just mentioning it is
they're planting the seeds, Sonny. Planting the seeds.
It's very interesting. So I guess we'll see in the next few months how things turn out. But with the gold price the way it is. We hope for better fortune. So thanks, Thibaut, for being on the segment today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Every year. But if you want to find out more about Thibaut Lepouttre, you can visit his newsletter, Caesar's Report, beocme.com. We'll put a link as well, and you can ask him directly some questions on Europe. But his focus is on the research sector and a lot of junior research stories out there.